What the opposite of murder looks like is not everybody holding hands and in agreement and singing Kumbaya and happy with everything, because that's never going to happen. That's not the world we're in. We all have different points of view. In politics, the opposite of murder is communion in conversation, in talking, in debate, in bringing our powerful differences and our deeply held beliefs and our absolute certainties and talking with people who have totally different beliefs and totally different certainties in a spirit of goodwill and listening to one another and with respect and grace, and sometimes finding out that maybe our arguments are the bad ones and then doing the painful business of changing our minds and reaching communion with people on the opposite side. And from that communion, we create the future of the country out of the will of the people, which is never one will. It's always a group of wills compromising with each other and cranking at each other and arguing with each other. That's what Charlie said he was doing whenever he was asked. He would go onto campuses and onto various places, set up a table sometimes, or do the kind of big rallies he was doing now as he got more and more famous. Here's a clip of him explaining to a woman who was questioning him why he did this. This is cut one.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assault, the left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put it on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence.
So when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. Obviously, that's true. I met Charlie the first time when he might have been 20. It was a long, long time ago. He came on my show. And Ben has been talking about when he met him and he was a kid, and that Ben was so impressed with his energy and his spirit that he thought he would one day lead the RNC, which of course I think he did something a lot more noble than that. But I had a different reaction because I was so much older, and he was incredibly respectful. I mean, almost painfully respectful to my elderly self, and I was thinking, this guy is smart, and he's certainly very, impassioned, but he's callow. He has time to change, but he's going to have to change, and that's what he did. He made him. So I said this to Ben, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago, that how impressed with him I was that he had made himself better. He read a lot. I think he was a Claremont fellow, did one of those Claremont study fellowships. He taught himself things. He found out deeply what he believed. He became more than he was, which it doesn't happen to you automatically over time. You don't just gain wisdom over time. You have to go out and get those things. He famously didn't go to college. He left school because he thought it wasn't an educational experience. It was ideological indoctrination. We all know in many schools, that's true. And he started Turning Point USA, which relatively rapidly became a huge and powerful organization with branches all across the country and spreading the word among young people. He was a big force in getting Trump reelected, bringing young people into the Trump campaign. He reminded me, oddly, I think he partly modeled himself on Ben. I think he modeled himself on people he saw who were doing good things. And he reminded me of Ben in a lot of ways because I met Ben when he was a kid too. And I used to think, wow, this guy has been given a gift of God with this tremendous brain. But he was also a kid, and kids are callow. They don't really get the whole picture yet. And I watched Ben, as I've said openly. Everybody always knows what I think of him. I watched him with great admiration and affection as he learned that all those facts in his head required also an understanding of people's feelings. He started out saying facts don't care about his feelings, but I can tell you stories, which I won't tell you because they're his stories, watching him suddenly discover, oh, wait, there are people inside these people. They're not just argument machines, debate machines. They're people who have feelings and stories and things. And he became, and especially after he had kids and realized this, he became a much deeper, richer person. And Charlie kind of came in the opposite direction. He started out with all the warmth and the passion and the instincts, but he taught himself the facts. He had the feelings. He taught himself the facts. He garnished God's gift to him with the hard work of educating himself so that when he dealt with people, he could argue with confidence. He recently, I think it was just last spring, he went to debate in Oxford University in England. The question before him was, has Trump gone too far? This is cut 11.
I never went to university. I take that as a great compliment. So therefore, everyone who went to university should be able to run circles around me. You'll be the judge, but I'll do my best. Has Donald Trump gone too far? Well, I can nitpick at how vague that question is. What is too far exactly? Are his tweets too long? Can all of us even agree on what we're aiming at? I don't think so. The truth is this. If you dislike the West, and if you hate the West's values, if you think the West is evil fundamentally and deserves to be destroyed, then anything Donald Trump does basically short of surrender will be too far for you.
So, that's a very American thing. My son went to Oxford. These are the smartest people in the world. They are, dauntingly smart. I sometimes listen to Spencer talk to his fellow Oxfordite, Mary Harrington. I can barely understand what they're saying with the references and the depth of knowledge that they have. And he, I won't state it too strongly to say he took them apart, but he did. He had the facts, he had the knowledge, and he made himself that. He made himself become that, and to be a self-made person who starts out with gifts and garnishes them is exactly what America is all about. So this murderer, whoever he or she turns out to be, killed someone who was doing the opposite of killing people. He was talking to them. He was discussing them and he was debating them. Because of all the wrong things the left says, language is violence is the wrongest thing. It's the wrongest thing that they say. Language is what we have instead of violence. I think was it FDR? He said, I prefer jaw to war. It's unique to human beings, this gift of language, and the kind of language we have is unique. It's uniquely suited, according to my Oxford-trained linguist son, Spencer, is uniquely suited to the expression of ideas. Other people, other animals get along with this very rudimentary forms of communication. They can talk to each other in certain ways, but we're born with this instinct for expressing ideas because we're spirits. We are spirits, and that's what makes us act, is ideas. We're not machines that act after a sequence of physical events. Ideas are what move us for good and for ill, and that's why this idea that language is violence and there are things that you must not say and ideas of violence, that's why it's so toxic. And that's why, you see the left in moments like this, not all of them, I have to say this, not all of them, but you see them expose themselves. Matthew Dowd was fired from MSNBC. You really have to, you got to work at it to get fired from MSNBC. But he reacted to Charlie's murder with this, is cut 6.
But following up what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
And so they fired him. He should be fired. He should be drummed out of the profession. That is not, he shouldn't be silenced, but he should not be somebody that respectable people have on. Compare that to this report from John Carl of ABC. Now, I have gone after John Carl possibly 1,000 times. He is a very, very left-wing reporter who reports with great bias from ABC. And this is him talking about Charlie after he was murdered and after Carl had been hanging out at the White House, where people were, of course, devastated because he was a friend of many of them. This is cut 7.
First, David, I have to say that the president sounded really struck by the event. He sounded shaken by what had just happened. It was before he had announced that Charlie Kirk had died, and he told me, it's horrific. It's one of the most horrible things I have ever seen. He was a great guy, he said. He was a good man. He was an incredible guy. Nobody like him. And David, he also said, he liked you. I don't know why, but he liked you. And I have to say, my engagements with Charlie Kirk, he was a real critic of the news media. He was always willing to engage and always pleasant in those conversations.
See, this is the thing. I mean, that is a remarkable thing for Carl to say, and good for him for saying it. Charlie was so often like this. The New York Times, running the story, went out of their way to quote things that he said that they thought could be construed as hateful and small-minded. And yet, if you watch Charlie, you have to remember he started out as a kid, just like Ben. Ben at one point posted a list of things that he had said that he no longer adhered to. If you can't change your mind over time, when you start out at 18, then you can't grow up and you can't become the kind of deeper, richer people that Ben and Charlie became. And so they can quote things that he said, but, when he would, he's a devout Christian, a devout evangelical Christian. He felt homosexuality was a sin per se. And yet I had seen him numerous times when gay people would approach him and say, "What will you say to me?" He would say, "I say welcome to the conservative movement. I don't think what you do in the bedroom defines you. Obviously, I think you shouldn't live that way, but that's not what defines you." And he was talking, of course, about ideas. For more Klavan-y goodness, like and subscribe. And for even more goodness, subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.